Welcome to the Gopher Way, a webinar series for families. This is our second session with Gopher Family Engagement hosting, and we're really glad to have you all here and so many families attending. We always know that this conversation is very timely and very top of mind for families and for their students. But we also are very appreciative of you joining us this evening, as well as I am very appreciative of my colleagues choosing to add a little extra time on their day and be here with you all to share some really helpful information, as this session is all about housing for next year. So it's given a lot of different details, and as we go through, I'll go through order of presentation here, but we have Mannix Clark from Housing and Residential Life. We have Mark Karen from Student Legal Service, and we also have Kendra Tironi from Off Campus Living here to share information. They'll go through and provide information from their, each side of the house, if you will. And then afterwards, we'll have time for a live question and answer session throughout the time together. You all can use the Q&A feature at the bottom to submit questions to all of us panelists. I'll be looking through those, responding during if I'm able or if I know the answer, and then we'll also be then following up in after all the presentations and information is shared from my colleagues, and then doing that live Q&A. For those of you who are attending this recording on YouTube, then the Q&A will not be there. It will only be, there's one of the perks of being here live and in person. But again, thank you all for being here. And with that, I will send it on over to Mannix to start us off.
Well, thank you, Gavin. My name is Mannix Clark. I work in the Housing and Residential Life office, as Gavin mentioned. I've been at the university this is my 26th fall. So I am very excited to chat with you a little bit today about what's happening in Housing and Residential Life as it relates to housing for the next year. I think my colleagues and I thought that we may see if we can keep questions to the end, unless you ask them through Gavin. Some of the more other questions he may have at the very end for us if we need to answer them as a whole, but Gavin's very knowledgeable, so he may answer them as throughout the day. But I'm trying to put up on the screen, you'll see our residence halls and apartments that we currently have on campus. Next year, if your student chooses to live on campus next year, and one of the questions we get often is how many students choose to live on campus a second year? It's between 15 and 20%, depending on what's available and what we have. It was closer to 20%, but we were in an apartment lease that we got out of. So now we're closer to about 16 or 17% of students who choose to stay on campus. But on the left screen, you'll see that those are the halls that we have limited space in. That means that the whole hall isn't available for returning students to sign up for, but they can live in the spaces in those halls. So that's 17th Avenue, Bailey, Centennial, Comstock, only in the Lavender House Learning Community, and then Middlebrook and Pioneer. Keeler and Udolph are two apartment buildings. Most of those buildings are available for returning students to sign up in. And then the four buildings on the right hand at the bottom are all first year only halls. So we don't have returning students sign up in those spaces. And then our next slide just talks about some of the unique benefits. If your student currently lives on campus, you're already aware of some of these things, but we have all-inclusive rates. So if your student doesn't have to worry about paying different types of things, but they can have all their inclusive rates. If they live in a residence hall right now, oftentimes many of our second-year students may choose to live in an apartment or a single or some other type of room that may be different than where they live now. We do have a lot of safety and security features. We have turnstiles in all except for 3 of our buildings, and we are in the process of doing those 3 here in the next couple of years. Over a 3 or 4 year period, we put turnstiles in all of our buildings, but you have to have a U card to get in every one of our buildings. That's part of our security mechanisms. We have 24-hour information desk. We have CA staff on duty every day, and that's our community advisor, our peer staff, as well as we have full-time residence directors and assistant residence directors, and then there's also a centralized person who's on duty as well for the whole campus. We have many leadership opportunities that your students can get involved in, as well as there's other building amenities. There's music practice rooms, there's kitchenettes, and all different types of things to try to make sure students have the opportunity to continue to get to know their hallmates, as well as we have some gender open housing options. Timeline and process. Last year was the first year that we moved in a long time, not the first year period. The first year, probably in the last 7 or 8 years, that we had moved room sign up to the spring. We used to do it in the fall. Part of the universities, as we look at when students sign for housing, we know that there's students out there now who are looking for housing. Once one of the reasons we're doing this webinar, but we also want students to make good informed decisions. And it's hard when they start looking for housing, they haven't even been on campus a month yet. So part of what we did last year was move our sign up until February. Your students have that option that they can sign up in February. It's a little different during that sign up process than what they did before. When they go to sign for housing in February, if they're looking at living on campus, they actually will see the room that they want and they will select that room, where before they applied and we assigned them a room. But here they would do it themselves. They don't pay that $50 application fee again. You only pay that one time. We do a lottery for sign up. That gives them the time that they would go in, and then them and their roommate would have the same lottery time. So whoever gets the best time, that becomes the time that they go in to do that. They can definitely select a roommate as an option. They can select at least one roommate, and then we're still working on some of the process if they can do more, but they can definitely select one roommate. Once again, I talked about signing up for their own space, and then after they sign up, within 7 days, they pay the housing guarantee, and that's what secures their space. So that's the important piece for them, to make sure that they get that housing guarantee paid there. Living learning communities. We have several learning communities for second year students. They are listed there on the screen. There are some that are associated with the college. If it's associated with a college or an academic setting, actually in November, they're going to get an email from us. And in December, they're going to kind of say, hey, I may be interested in this. Because what we want to do for our academic-based learning communities is let those students know early that, yep, you can sign up in February, but there's space for you in that learning community. Because some students may make their decision, hey, am I going to be able to stay on campus if I can get an honors second year experience, or otherwise I may go off campus. So we want those students to be able to make that decision ahead of time. If it's a academic based LLC, they will just sign up for that in February when they sign up for all their other ones. But there's definitely some there that you will see that. So if your student is in one of those colleges or has one of those interests, they definitely can do that. Contract options. Just want to list it here. We have several different options for returning students. The top is our traditional residence halls. Mostly, their first day back would be September 5th through May 12th next year, because Labor Day is a little late. So we open the halls a little later. UDOLF has a different contract period. It opens in the middle of August and then it goes to the end of May. We've done that probably about the last 15 years. And then Keeler has the same contract period. The difference of UDOLF and Keeler, Keeler definitely will be open the summer of 2027. UDOLF, depending on where we're going, that's the summer we're going to do the turnstiles in UDOLF. It may or may not be open, but we will always have space for students if they want to live with us in the summer. And by November 15th, we will have that information. So that will be up on our website. Just a few more things I'd like to highlight before I turn it over to my colleagues. Study abroad. Oftentimes we will have students who will live with us because they know they're going to study abroad. So they may say, hey, I know I want to study abroad in the spring of 2027. So they will live with us in the fall, because study abroad is one of the reasons we let students out of their housing contract. So they don't have to worry if they're off campus and they're in a lease. It will be maybe harder to get out of that contract. So that is an option for students if they want to study abroad. If for some reason they study abroad in the fall, we always have space for the most part available in many of our buildings in the spring semester. They just apply for housing and they move through that. And once again, when they apply, they wouldn't pay that fee again, because the non-refundable fee you only pay one time. Dining on campus, there are many students who still choose to eat on campus, all except for Comstock. All the other dining locations on campus, the residential restaurants or dining halls, are available for students if they want to choose a meal plan. They can choose a full board plan, or they can just choose a certain number of meals. They can choose as dining dollars, but that's definitely an option for your student. If they say, hey, I want you to have one good meal, maybe in that residence hall or dining center, once a day, you can get that 5 meal a week plan, or there's other plans there. We also have a number of students who may have an accommodation request. We still work with our colleagues in the Disability Resource Center to work through those accommodation requests. So students usually go there, and if they go there, they kind of tell us what the student needs, and we work with that student to try to accommodate their needs. I'm gonna go real fast through this one because I have a feeling my friend Kendra is going to talk about this when she does hers. We have an off-campus listing service, and we have an off-campus housing fair. I will mosey on through this because I know all three of us could touch on that. But I'm going to turn over to my colleague Mark Karen now, who's director of our student legal service, and he will give you his part of the presentation.
Thanks, Mannix. My name is Mark Karen. Where Mannix talked about, I think, 26 years. He's very young. Uh, this is my 45th fall on campus. And I came to the university after practicing for 5 years at a very large law firm. Um, this is, if we were in person, this is where I would ask parents to identify if their students have their own attorney and to raise their hand. And very few parents would raise their hands, but it's a trick question because every student at the University of Minnesota who is a full-time or is a fee-paying student is entitled to utilize our services. We are staffed by 8 experienced attorneys, together with support staff. Um, and ethically, and if the student wants to come and see us, it is a confidential appointment, which where we can provide either advice, counsel, and or representation. Landlord-tenant issues have become the major area of our practice. And so, as you can see, our logo there, we have given Goldie the scales of justice and a gavel. It violates trademark and copyright principles because there's an agreement that Goldie can't be in any way altered or changed, but we are fortunate that the university hasn't sued us or anything. There is no charge for our consultations, advice, or representation. If we cannot provide direct services for students, we have a referral list of attorneys in the area that will help and assist students either at a low fee or at a reduced rate. Um, and so these are the major areas of our practice. And as I said, landlord tenant has become the major area because this university, meaning the University of Minnesota, which when I was a student there and when I started working at the university was more of a commuter campus. And as Mannix mentioned, those things have flipped. Uh, Now 80 or 90% of the incoming class is living in university housing or on campus. And so they have legal issues. That's another thing is that uh, with the passage of the 26th Amendment to the United States Constitution, um, they may be leaving you as your children, but they're coming to the university as adults. And so they can enter into contracts, they can sign leases, they can have their own credit cards and other kinds of things. And so having the ability to contact and utilize legal services has been a tremendous benefit for the students. So we also, because some of you may have gone through orientation with your students and gone to the orientation fair, we commonly get at our table when a parent sees student legal service, grab their student by the ear and say, you better not need them. As I said, much of what we do is preventive in nature. But the other thing is that if your student is interested in law or a law-related profession or education, we offer every year something we call our Emerging Leaders in the Law, which has mentoring. They get to meet with judges. They get to meet with Supreme Court justices and Court of Appeals judges, meet attorneys, talk to the admissions people from all the major law schools. So there is no fee for it. And we do it both, it's a hybrid in August. So if any of your students are interested in pursuing law or law-related education, or want to explore that opportunity, they can simply contact our office. So I'm going to go through the next couple of slides pretty quickly because Kendra's going to talk a lot about the neighborhoods and other kinds of things. But one of the things that and Mannix mentioned it as well, there's a lot of stress that's involved in this, because there's a lot of even though there are a lot of buildings, students are oftentimes approached literally right around this time or a month after school has begun, and where are you going to live next year? And that puts a lot of pressure on them. The thing that we will all agree on, Kendra, Mannix, and I, is that you don't have to make a decision tomorrow. Okay. This is something that they can take their time with. And because with all the building, there's a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of different kinds of buildings with amenities and that are good places to live. We have an off-campus living OCL office in Kendra, and she works closely with the neighborhood because the university is very concerned and wants to ensure that we can provide as the best living environment for students so that they can focus on their studies and achieve their goals and reach success. But they should kind of ask these kinds of questions. You know, are they going to be living with somebody? Do they want to live in an apartment? They want to live in a house? Do they want to be close to campus where they can literally walk? Or do they want to be in an area where at least there's a bus or some other means of transportation that could get them there quickly? Do they know their prospective roommates? Now, Mannix mentioned, and I'll just touch on it briefly, study abroad. Study abroad continues to expand since the pandemic ended. And so more and more opportunities are available to students to study abroad, and the university encourages that. And so one of the problems is that if you have a roommate and you're going into an apartment, you should know whether or not that roommate intends to study abroad, because that could create a problem and leave a void as to paying rent. So those are considerations that not only where will you live, but in choosing a roommate. So again, I mentioned this, and do you need to rent near campus? You know, there is bus services, light rail now. There's other kinds of things. So some students may elect to live in other areas that are a little further away from campus. But how safe is the building or neighborhood you're considering? That's something that you may want to look into. That's something that, again, you can reach out to us or you can reach out to Kendra's office and ask that type of a question. So resources, as I said, and this is basically the people who are on here right now. Student Legal Services, our website is usls.umn.edu. If students have questions and we want to meet with them before they make a costly mistake, if they've gone and they've viewed a property and they have questions about the property or the landlord, or if there's questions about the lease, we are happy to meet with them. They can make an appointment with us by simply going online at usls.umn.edu, and then there's a box there to click to make an appointment. They can make that appointment. Off-campus living, which is Kendra's, and she's going to speak shortly, and she can go into more detail on that, but that's their website. And then HRL which is Mannix and housing and that. So you'll have the opportunity to to speak to people. The other thing that um, that Housing Residential Life has done is they have contracted with a outside vendor called Rent College Pads, which literally, uh, I don't want to say they interview, but they survey students who are currently living so that they can rate and identify issues. And so it's a good place to look to see if this property that they're considering, how others have rated it, past tenants, uh, or even going and knocking on the door and talking to current tenants. How responsive is the landlord to their needs? If there's maintenance required, what do they have to go through? Are they easily accessible, etc.? So when again, once they found that apartment or apartments, uh, where do they get more information? Well, and I got through university without Google. I don't, now that I have Google, I don't know how I did, but you can go Google a landlord's name and you can see if people have posted comments about them and what kind of Google reviews that are there. The other thing though is that if they use Rent College Pads and there's pictures and there's other kinds of things, or if they look on a website, it's like any other anything else. We can make things look really nice, and but they should go there and they should look before they lease, and they shouldn't be afraid to ask the landlord questions. And then, like I say, if they're given a lease, even if they're pressured, they should say either I have to go over it with my parents, or I'm going to have somebody look at it. Um, the landlords may not like it if they say, I'm going over to student legal services, but so it's really easy to say, I have to have my parents look at it. And so they should definitely then come in and see us, and they should definitely go over it with you. So inspecting the property, get the owner's name, the manager, and there should be, by law, in the apartment building, located in an area that anybody can see the name of the owner, the management company, or who should be contacted. And some of the things that I want to say, and this includes the electronic signatures and other kinds of things, is that that's something that's difficult. Is that you could by mistake click something and then all of a sudden you're under an obligation to that. But ask to review the lease and all of the related forms in advance. And don't pay a deposit until you're sure that this is in fact the location that you're interested in, because it may be difficult to get that deposit back. And don't sign anything or click anything until you're sure that you are this is the property that you're interested in. And what I mean by get promises, that next bullet point, get promises in writing. If they go there and they question them and they say, well, yeah, we're going to put in new carpeting because, yeah, there's the carpeting's old, or we're going to paint, or we're going to do something. Make sure they get that affirmation, that promise in writing, because the landlord might say, well, yeah, I said they're going to get that we're going to put in new carpeting, but I didn't say when. Uh, and and it's not going to be now. So that's why it's important to get those kinds of things in writing, and we can help with that. A lease is a contract. Contracts are negotiable. Okay. So recently, and I say this recently, within the last 2 years, our office has worked very close with the undergraduate student government and with others to try and get legislation in place to protect tenants, not just tenants at the university, but statewide. And Minnesota has a very favorable landlord-tenant law set of statutes in comparison to some states. Okay. But one of the newest laws is the right to inspect. And that means that landlords must give you the right to request, if you ask for it, to inspect the property before you move in. And as you can see, the statute says move-in inspection must occur within 14 days. And then you have the right to also, if you're terminating at the conclusion of the tenancy, to make the landlord go through with you and check things off. Okay. And you have to request it though. That protection is there, but if you don't request it, it's waived. So silence is acquiescence. Okay. If you don't ask for it, you can't ask for it later. This is going back to the very beginning when I started, which is don't feel pressured to sign a lease. And I mean, it's a very common kind of thing. I got 5 other people waiting to sign a lease for this. So you have to sign before you leave. Okay. Don't give in to that pressure. Okay. Go to the next one. The reason we do that is that one of the things that has happened as more and more buildings have come up in the university area is there are more and more corporate landlords, businesses and investment companies and hedge funds and other things that own apartments at major universities throughout the country. 3 years ago, we had a debacle, which resulted in us getting about 435 phone calls from people. One of the apartments that was brand new, after they collected, the day after they collected the first month's rent in August, sent an email to everybody saying the building isn't ready. So you're going to have to find alternative housing. Now, to some extent, giving them, it's called Cal Ventures, some credit. They made alternative plans available or made it so that students could find alternative housing. But they had a detailed lease. And Cal Ventures is not a Minnesota corporation or anything else. So we were dealing with attorneys who weren't necessarily in Minnesota. They make a lease that covers all of their properties, regardless of what state they are in. So not that you can see that 17 pages that are up on that in the corner of the slide, but it was a 33-page lease with a 17-page, this isn't the one from Cal Ventures, by the way, different company, 33-page lease, 17-page addendum. And at the conclusion, and as you can see, it was legal size, not even letter size. At the very last page, it said, this lease and its provisions apply to the state that you were in. Those provisions that are contrary to the state that you're in, you can disregard. Well, I have yet to meet a second-year student or a third-year student at the university who is familiar with Chapter 504B of the Minnesota statutes that identifies our landlord-tenant law. And so that's why we encourage people to have their lease reviewed and make sure they understand all of the provisions and conditions. Again, one of the new protections is that because there is continued to be new buildings that keep going up at the university, in and around the university, sometimes students will go and rent a hole in the ground. Okay, they will look at pictures. They will go to a trailer or to a building, and they will be showing pictures of what things look like. Um, and that's what happened in identity. And so one of the other pieces of new legislation is that tenants are protected. Specific start and end dates have to be on the first page of the lease. Unit specificity. So if they agree and they've looked at and they want to are renting unit 305, and then all of a sudden the landlord says, nah, you know what, you're going to be in B12 in the basement. That's their lease says that that's a material breach. They have to receive a written copy of it. If there's a short-term end lease in there, and this was common, it's still common, but now they know about it. It used to be that some landlords were putting in this lease term is from September 1st, 2025 to August 31st, 2026. And hidden in the lease was a provision that says tenant agrees to vacate by August 15th, 2027, or whatever that year is, of the last year of the lease, last month, so that we can clean up and fix everything. Two things. Now that has to be on the front page of the lease. And secondly, it has to be prorated rent. So if it's $1,000 a month rent, $12,000 a year, and you're losing 15 days, they get a $500 abatement. Okay. Next bullet, which is really beneficial now. Landlords, when there are 10 units or more, and there's another slide on this, must wait until 6 months from the expiration of the current lease before requiring a tenant to renew the lease if the lease is 10 months or longer. So almost every one of the leases, not all of them, but there are a few that'll allow you to rent for the school year, 9 months. And on occasion, you might be able to find a landlord that's willing to either do a tenancy at will, month to month, or a shorter lease. But almost all the leases are 12 months. And if they're 10 months or longer, they can't try and come to the tenant and ask to renew until 6 months after the start of the lease. Okay, and if the building isn't suitable for occupancy, this is in response to what happened in the identity one. The tenant has the right to terminate. Lease reviews, as I said, we have half of our professional staff are landlord, tenant, consumer attorneys. The youngest one with 10 years of experience. The oldest one with, and it's not me, but the oldest one still has 45 years of experience. And we're happy to go over with them all of these kinds of issues if they come up, if any of them come up. Okay. Security deposit, I'm going to just say what it is. It's an advance payment to recover unpaid rent or damages. Some landlords and the majority are going away from requiring or having a security deposit. Now they use that to their advantage by then being able to immediately turn things over to collection agencies and other kinds of means. Next slide. The term we've already gone over, so we can go to the next slide here. It's expensive. Okay, these are statistics from the Star Tribune, Minneapolis studio, 1,083 one-bedroom, 1,354, and two-bedroom apartments in Minneapolis, 2,026 a month. So the one thing that I would also tell you, whether it be an apartment or a house, one of the things with apartments, at least if it's a 4-bedroom apartment, there can be 4 unrelated individuals living there. There are zoning ordinances in both Minneapolis and St. Paul for houses. So if your student, along with friends, decide to rent a house, they have to make sure that it is not overoccupied. Okay, so it's something they should contact us about. Okay. Joint lease and joint and several. And this is why I think it's really important, especially if you as a parent are asked to sign as a guarantor. Okay. Is that if it's a joint lease, all of you or all the tenants are jointly and severally liable for the monthly rent. So if the monthly rent is $1,000 a month and one of the students and the roommate decides, I think I want to go to Spain for spring semester. I'm leaving January. That could leave the other tenant paying the entire $1,000 a month. Okay, if it's a joint and several liability lease. So that's why we want to make sure that we look at it and that you look at it, especially if you're asked to be a guarantor. Okay, next. Already covered the short end leases where they ask you to leave short of the end of the last month. And here's the short-term provision. This is just a statute. So you can look at it, and there's no test at the end of this, by the way, so you don't have to worry that we're going to ask you, well, what did 504B 146 say? Okay. Again, a newer provision says that landlords have to give at least 24-hour notice before they can enter the property. There is an emergency exception to that, number one, and number two, the tenant can agree to give them less, that they don't have to or waive that kind of requirement. But that's a relatively new lease provision as well in our statutes. Already covered this one, so we can go on to the next. Already covered security deposits. We work very closely with the Minneapolis Housing Inspection, so that one of our attorneys has a seat on the REPAC committee, which is the Rental Property Advisory Committee. So it's important that you recognize that we participate, and Kendra is very active with the city people and other things to have a voice to protect the students. Okay, next. I already talked about e-signing. Go on, next one. I'm going to just go to, this is one, renter's insurance. Okay. And I don't get anything from Flo or Jake or the Gecko for this. In fact, we don't get along that well. But renter's insurance is relatively inexpensive. If your student is going to rent, you should check with your homeowners and find out if that covers the student while they are away. If it doesn't, it is very minimal. It's about $10 a month to get renter's insurance, and that will protect them for various types of losses. So, like I said, check with your agent and determine whether or not your student is covered. If they aren't, then get that. Craigslist and other kinds of things. If they're going to sublet, come to us beforehand. Watch out because there's a lot of scams that are out there where somebody will say, yes, I want to sublet your apartment, meaning that if your student is going to go come home for 3 months or whatever it is over the summer and they want to sublet, and somebody sends them an email, says, I'll send you, you want $3,000 for the 3 months. I'll send you $4,000. Send me back 1,000. And people do that. It's a very common scam. And it's a bad check that they sent to begin with. So don't fall prey to those kinds of things. If they're in a house and they're having a party, understand that by having a party, they want to keep it inside, they want to keep the noise down and anything else. And if by chance alcohol is present and people are under the age of 21, it exposes them to liability under what is called our social host law in the city of Minneapolis and in St. Paul. Okay. Last couple of slides, cannabis. Cannabis became legal in the state of Minnesota on August 1st, 2023. You can't get it anywhere, but it became legal in the state of Minnesota. But cannabis is still illegal under all federal laws. And as a result, if they are going into some kind of federally subsidized housing and it's Section 8 or anything else, they can't have it there. And to have or to utilize it, even though it's legal in the state of Minnesota, it's not legal in those types of facilities or in university housing, by the way. Okay. Already talked about social host. And so they should be aware of the fact that if they violate some of these kinds of provisions, that they could be subject to the sanctions that are can be imposed through the University Student Conduct Code. Kendra will probably talk and maybe a little more on that. Maybe not. I see you're shaking her head, but just keep in mind that, okay? And we don't need to talk about this one. Can the police come in? Yeah, they can. All right. So I'll be on here and I know that there'll probably be questions. I'm going to turn it over to Kendra.
All right. Hey, everyone. Again, I'm Kendra Taroni. Thanks so much, Mark. I will be talking to you today about off-campus living. We are the office on campus that provides resources for all the students who rent in the near neighborhoods and all the students who commute from home. I am the program director. We have 4 different areas that are our main focus within the office: commuter engagement, neighborhood outreach, apartment outreach, and renter education. And obviously renter education is the main reason I'm here today and what I'll be talking about primarily. So some of these have been referenced a little bit. This one is not. So there's kind of 3 resources I always like to highlight. Our roommate finder. That is a tool that we provide to students here on our campus. It's a way for them to try and identify roommates and find someone who maybe they don't know as many people on campus, or they're starting so soon, or maybe they're looking for, they have a 4-person apartment, but they only have themselves and 2 other friends. They need to find a 4th. The roommate finder can be a great resource. It is a resource that only is available to individuals that are enrolled and admitted students on our campus. So we never approve anyone to utilize the tool that's not a university student. So know that. Basically, they fill out a Google form. They identify the things they're looking for in an apartment, neighborhoods, price points, amenity things, and whatnot. And then once we approve them, they get access to a spreadsheet and some other resources to help them learn how to talk to each other about the roommate possibilities. But they do have to go through and they have to vet and identify people and ask them questions themselves. We're not allowed to match potential roommates. Housing and Residential Life can when people first come into the university, but legal counsel for the university will not allow our office to do any matching directly ourselves. So we do try to kind of coach the students a little bit on things they can say, questions they should ask. That's the reason we have some housing groups on Facebook. So we know that primarily students they don't use Facebook that often, but for groups, they can and they do. And so we have a housing group that's there, as well as a roommate finder specific group on Facebook. Again, these 2 groups are private groups. They have to be an enrolled or admitted student to get access to these groups. So we do, every student that requests, every person that requests, they have to provide their university email. We look them up and we verify that they are a current enrolled student. If they're not, we decline and we don't let people join. So that helps cut down on some of the spam in the group, although there may be here and there that happens, but we do encourage students to utilize these opportunities to connect with each other and try to find folks. They're also, the housing group in particular can also be a great way to find sublets. Sublets can be challenging on our campus because so many students leave over summer. And so trying to find someone to fill your spot, or people that are doing study abroad and they're trying to find someone to take over a lease, the housing group is a great resource for that. The off-campus listing service has already been mentioned. That's operated by Housing and Residential Life. That is the first place that we encourage students to go when searching for housing. And as Mark mentioned, we do not inspect those properties at all. Those properties do pay a fee to the university to advertise on that site, but we do have a system in which the worst landlords aren't allowed to list, and I'll explain that a little more in a few minutes. One of the best resources we offer is our Renter Education Canvas course. Basically, this is an online course where we've taken pretty much all the information that Student Legal Service and that my office present to students in a renter education workshop and try to put it online in bite-sized components for students to go through, and they can do one module, they can do all 11. It's really up to them. They do it from the comfort of their home on their computer or tablet or device. They do need to have a UMN email address to enroll in the course, so my apologies, but family members are not allowed to do that, but you can strongly encourage your student to do so. And then I do have here just kind of what the modules are, so you can kind of see some examples of the different types of topics that we cover there. Students can find it easily. You can scan the QR code and share that address, but you could also just have them go to z.umn.edu/renter-education to find the modules there. Another great resource, we think the best resource, is using our website for students that are renting or students that are commuting from home. And so lots of great information that's there. If you only have a few minutes to spend on our website looking at something, if you can see on the bottom right-hand section of your screen there where it says non-compliance list, I would encourage people to click there. That's an area where we highlight different research steps that we think every student should take when they're doing their housing search. So we want to encourage students to search the property information that's provided on the city website for Minneapolis or St. Paul, depending on where they're looking. We want them to call 311 if they have concerns and to check to see if there are any open orders against that particular property when they're researching it. As Mark mentioned, Googling the property owner, the management, to see, are there articles about them? Are there reviews? Often there are Google reviews available online that students can look at to help them make a good decision. We also want to encourage individuals to look at our non-compliance list that I'll talk about in a little more in a moment next, to see, are they in compliance with city or university policy. As Mark mentioned, we strongly want to encourage students to talk to current tenants for what their living experience has been like at that property. That really is the best barometer. Google reviews might be useful, but they might be a year old, 2, 3 years old, and management might have changed. So it might be a different experience for current tenants than what it was when someone did that review. That can be really helpful. And then we always really want to encourage our students to be their own best advocate and communicate with their landlord. If they've come across any concerns during that research process, they really should discuss that concern with the potential landlord. As I mentioned, step 3 is looking at our non-compliance property list here. And what this is we have an off-campus housing program policy. And that policy basically says that when there is a property that has 3 or more substantiated or unresolved student-initiated complaints within a 12-month period against the property, Student Legal Services lets me know, and we put them on our website on this public listing. Now, it doesn't mean that they're not a great place to live. Several of these places might have positive experiences for students. It just means that there had been some problems and that they're likely in the process of trying to resolve or work through those. It's just really important for students, if their property they're considering is on this list, they should ask the property owner, the property manager, why are you on this list? If they want to reach out to me, I'm happy to tell them the reasons that they're on the list. It doesn't mean they shouldn't rent with them, just means they should ask some good questions. And we want to encourage students to do that. As was mentioned, I think Mannix referred to this as well. We do have this off-campus housing fair that my office hosts in conjunction with Housing and Residential Life. It's happening on November 20th from 10 to 2 over in the Great Hall in the Kaufman Memorial Union. It's a great place, a chance to meet a wide variety of properties all in one place. So properties that have 20 or more units are invited to participate. We also invite lots of great resources and have them available too. Like Mark's staff will be tabling there from Student Legal Service. We invite in the city inspector's office to come and have a table. We'll often have parking and transportation there to answer things about commuting. We'll ask Metro Transit to be there. We'll have the dining service to talk about commuter meal plans. My office is there. All sorts of different resources as well that make it a beneficial opportunity for your students to attend. And of course, lots of swag, free food. Can't have an event without free food to draw those students in. I also wanted to highlight as well our renter education workshops, which I kind of mentioned that those modules are based off of these workshops. We find that students find it really helpful to attend. They start at 6 p.m. We've got 5 locations, 5 dates identified here. If you do want to see the particular room location for each one, you can go on the calendar on my website, ocl.umn.edu, that was referenced earlier. And if you scroll to the bottom, the public calendar for my office is there, and all of these dates are all listed there that you can find. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but one of the areas when your students starting their search, it's really helpful for them to figure out and narrow down like where they want to live, what neighborhood. That can be a really overwhelming step for students when they're starting. I do have information on my website about particular neighborhoods. And so I'll just highlight here the East Bank neighborhoods of Marcy Homes, Como, Prospect Park. Those are the most popular location. The majority of our undergraduates do rent in those East Bank neighborhoods. I will mention they're also the oldest neighborhoods in the city of Minneapolis. So if they are looking at house rentals, duplex rentals, it's older housing stock. Many of the apartments are newer, but there are plenty of apartments that have been around. We've had a big construction boom, I would say, in the last 20 years, but definitely the homes that are there are older, so be aware of that if they're doing house rentals. Some students will choose to rent on the West Bank neighborhood. We see a lot of graduate students choosing to rent there because of the proximity to the professional schools that we have through the Humphrey and the law school and whatnot. And obviously there's a lot of non-students that may rent in West Bank as well. We'll have some students that will choose to rent near the St. Paul campus, maybe because that's where they're studying. But the St. Paul campus is not actually in St. Paul. It's in the city of Falcon Heights. So Falcon Heights, St. Anthony Park, Roseville are the Lauderdale. Those are the nearby neighborhoods there. Definitely a quieter area. There's fewer renters in those neighborhoods. So be prepared for that. There's going to be a lot more long-term neighbors living nearby. We also like to point out and highlight that students can consider renting in Northeast Minneapolis, especially if you're looking for a more affordable option for rent. You're often going to find that in the Beltrami, St. Anthony East, or St. Anthony West neighborhoods. And you can bike from there, you can bus from there and get there in the same amount of time that it might take you to get from Southeast Como neighborhood on East Bank to campus. So just being aware that there are other possibilities besides East Bank. I always like to highlight I have a couple slides on safety things because I just think you are individuals who could influence your students and hopefully encourage them to pay attention, and locking doors and windows, locking cars, locking everything all the time. Locking bikes is so important. Bike theft is the biggest crime we have on campus and near campus. So in terms of locking cars, we want students to put their belongings away in the trunk before they reach their destination, right? To help avoid car break-ins and whatnot. Always like to reinforce some good safety messages. We also really want to encourage you to have a discussion with your student if they're moving off about making sure their smoke detectors are working. If they take a battery out because they burned something in the kitchen, put the battery back in. Talking with them about how will they get out in case of a fire, knowing where all their exits are, and hopefully they have more than one available to them, right? If a window or a door is broken, how important it is to do that maintenance request to get it fixed immediately, making sure that doors have working locks, not letting them be complacent and just let maintenance issues kind of pile up. It's really important for their safety that they get those things taken care of in a timely manner. And the maintenance staff should be responding pretty quickly with those types of things. I also just want to do a quick overview of some of the safety resources so you know, because a lot of these benefit students that are living off campus. Our 624 walk program is operated by the University Police Department, where they have trained student security staff that will walk your student anywhere on or off of campus, up to a mile off campus or back to campus. They do call to request that, and they can do a text request now these days. We also have that Gopher chauffeur program operated by the Public Safety Department. They use an app to request those rides. It does operate 7 days a week, 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. They are closed over breaks like winter break and spring break, and they are closed on university holidays, but otherwise operating for students. And I will show a map in a moment that kind of shows you where that boundary is, as well as for the 624 walk program. We have those blue light kiosks that you've probably seen on our campus when you've been here visiting for your tours and orientation and dropping your students off to move in. And those are across our campus, but they also are on the edges of campus and the edges of some of the areas like Dinkytown. And so we want students to pay attention to those blue light kiosks. They are a direct phone link to 911 to the University Police Department, answering that 911 call and to arrive quickly. Many of them also have video cameras that also provide great surveillance to help increase the safety for our students on and near campus areas. And then I always just like to mention that there is that Rave Guardian campus safety app that the Public Safety Department offers that basically creates like a virtual walking buddy for students. I want to encourage them to think about that if that might be of use to them. So here's that map that I wanted to show you. So you can see the kind of this area. This is the river kind of coming through that divides West Bank and East Bank. So a small amount of blue lights on the West Bank. This is our East Bank area. And you can kind of see this is actually campus here, but these blue lights kind of going up in this kind of northern area. This is kind of Dinkytown. And so those are blue lights that are there in the Dinkytown area. You can see the 624 walk boundaries are these black dash lines. And so there's some in the Como neighborhood, St. Paul campus as well. And then obviously the blue lights are where those blue lights are shown. So just wanted to have you have that visual reference. I always like to have you pass on to your students to encourage them to sign up for their neighborhood listserv. I listed the East Bank neighborhoods and the West Bank neighborhoods here on my website. You can find the ones for other neighborhoods as well. We strongly want to encourage that. We also want to encourage students to consider joining nextdoor.com. A lot of you probably are on. I know it's a lot of lost cats and lost dogs, but the reality is there's also lots of great safety information that neighbors share with each other, things they're observing, and that can be super helpful. There's also great community events your student might want to know about and take advantage of. The Nextdoor would let them know about that. Other things I like to highlight quickly here as we're kind of getting close to the 6 o'clock hour. I always like to highlight the Pack and Give Back program, which is operated by our reuse program within facilities management. Many of you may have seen the pop-up free store that was part of Welcome Week on the Tuesday when they were moving in over at the Union and the Great Hall. There are all those bins of free clothing, and those are all items that were collected from the residence halls during the May move out. So what we do is we put collection bins in res hall lobbies in December and in May. We collect clothing, we collect books, we collect household items, kitchen items, food, cleaning supplies, and then we provide them back for free to students, or some of it is also sold at the reuse program to the public. So just trying to get things out of the waste stream and have a new life and continued life for reusable items. You can kind of see on the left there, in our house rentals, often when people move out, they pile things up, all the trash, and things go to waste as scavengers go through. We do have a program where we work with the city of Minneapolis to kind of come through and pull reusable items off the curb before the trash pickup to try and salvage some of those items and take them to the reuse program to be useful to others at that place. So we think it's a great program in that way. Another great program that Reuse is offering that I think is especially helpful for students is a short-term storage option. So they have made available an opportunity to store items for summer for a flat fee per box. They provide the box for you. You can see in the graphic there, it's a 48 by 24 by 28 box. So in the res hall, they actually, for an additional fee, they'll pick up and drop off the item for you. So they'll bring a box to the loading zone at a predetermined time. Your student would meet them, put the items in the box. Reuse staff will take it away, store it at the reuse warehouse, and then they'll bring it back and drop it back off when they move back in September, the following fall. If someone's returning to the res halls. People can also utilize the storage if they are living off campus. They just need to bring the items themselves, or maybe if a student did the pickup in the res hall, they would go pick up in person, and to do that in September if they are moving off campus in that way. But it is, so the prices might change, but for one box, it was $41, which is really reasonable. And then for one short-term options, they did 1 month or less, and that was $25 for that same full size box. So I think it's a great option and a great resource to our students that they can take advantage of. And you can see the Z link there. Kind of in wrapping up, I want to encourage you, or to have you encourage your student to sign up for our newsletter. I wish we had the ability to contact every student that's not living at a res hall directly. I'm allowed to email them once a semester and invite them to sign up for the newsletter, but I can't just automatically send them the newsletter. So I encourage you to have your student sign up. You can find it at the link at the base of our website, or you can scan this QR code to do that. And then just in summary, I want to share, your student can visit us in person in 117 Appleby Hall. We're in the process of moving. So I'm up in 117. My student staff are moving up in the next 2-3 weeks into our space here. You can also find our information on the website. They can email our department at ocl@umn.edu, or I also put up my direct phone number there. So if you or your student has a question and wants to give me a call, you can reach me at 612-625-8939. We do have social media that our OSA Central Office for Student Affairs does that. We do provide commuter specific things at UMN Commuter Central on Insta, and that is operated by my student staff, posting things there. So we'd love to have your student follow us to see what's going on, or you can encourage them to come out to our fun programs as well. So that is it for the presentation pieces. So Gavin, do you want to walk us through the questions that came in? And I will go ahead and stop sharing screen. Let me know if you want me to share again to get back to a particular slide to help answer a question.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you all for being a part of this, sharing all that helpful information, as many have no doubt found it helpful. We did have at the highest 387 people here being able to get this information. And so thank you for the interest, but also thank you, Mannix, Mark, and Kendra, for being a part of this and sharing all this information. At this time, we can move into the live Q&A, and this will not appear on the recording on YouTube, which I will post by the end of this week. Kind of the perk of being here live and in person is you get to get the benefit of the live Q&A answers.